Today on Inside Utah Politics, Refugee Resettlement. Our state is welcoming hundreds of refugees fleeing Afghanistan, how the effort is going and how you can help. And the federal government dishing out billions of dollars to help rural health care providers with the challenges of the pandemic, how the money will be put to use.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin this morning with a conversation on refugee resettlement here in Utah. For that, we welcome in Natalie Eldiri with the International Rescue Committee and Aidan Batar with Catholic Community Services. So glad to have both of you on the show this morning. Let's start off with the refugee experience. Paint the picture for us. What is it like for those who leave behind everything they know to start all over in a new place? Aidan, let's start with you on that.
Well, it's not an easy to be a refugee. I myself came here as a refugee in 1994, was one of the first Somali refugees to come to Utah, and it wasn't easy. But I think one thing that made the journey easy was that the welcoming that I received from the community here in Utah, so welcoming, and so, giving me the opportunity that I needed. And I think that's what the refugees that are coming now need. So our community is always welcoming, providing a place to stay, giving them jobs, even smiling at them and saying welcome to our community is really a huge thing.
Mm-hmm. We're going to dig more into that a little bit later. Natalie, your family were refugees coming to our area. Talk about their experience.
Actually, my family are immigrants from Mexico, and so it's a little bit of a different experience. But I think it's important to recognize that people don't want to leave their home. They are doing so out of desperation and the opportunity to seek a better life, to seek sanctuary, to seek safety. So I think that's a really important component to remember as we're thinking about why people flee or choose to leave their homes in the first place. And that there's a lot of grief that goes with that. With the people that we're serving right now, they're longing for a life that they had before and having to rebuild and start from scratch right now.
Let's talk a little bit about your two organizations. Tell us more about those. Aidan, the Catholic Community Services, give us some background.
Catholic Community Services is one of the resettlement agencies here in the state of Utah that brings refugees. Every year, hundreds of refugees come through our organization. We provide vital services as these families start their journey to Utah. First, we provide resettlement services where housing, employment, case management, and many other services. We also provide a refugee foster care program where we bring unaccompanied refugee minors that we are placing into our foster program. So we're always looking foster families to help these children that are coming. And then we have our immigration program that helps anyone with an immigration need, especially with the Afghan refugees that are currently arriving. All of them are coming without immigration documentation, so they're going to need all of them to be represented by immigration attorneys, and so those three programs are vital as the refugees come to our community.
Natalie, tell us about International Rescue Committee.
So the International Rescue Committee is an international humanitarian aid organization. We do work all over the world and across the United States. And here in Utah, we've been here for about 25 years. We are a resettlement agency, but we also provide other community-based services to new American community members. So that includes long-term assistance, starting small businesses. We have our Spice Kitchen Incubator, as well as helping people purchase homes. But really, at the core of our work is around refugee resettlement and welcoming new arrivals and helping them gain their footing here in the United States.
So each of your organizations have specific items that you deal with specifically. Talk about working together and the importance of doing that as two organizations to make sure this process goes smoothly. Aidan.
So both our organizations, Catholic Community Services and International Rescue Committee, we collaborate in many variety of things as refugees arrive here. We always, collect donations together. We collaborate in cases, different programs. We refer cases to each other. We kind of like complement of the work that we do, so we don't compete at all. Natalie and I are always friends, and we talk about collaboration. And the main thing is, our refugees that come to our community, we want them to receive those welcoming and also to get the services that they need, and also so they can become contributing members of our society. Mm-hmm. Self-sufficiency is the biggest things that we both do, and so that's how we collaborate, by providing the the refugees the services that they entitled to receive.
Natalie, talk about that collaboration from your perspective.
Sure. I would say that we're very close collaborators, but we're also kind of working in close concert with the Department of Workforce Services Refugee Services Office. And so between the three of us, we have a very trusting and close partnership where we align our efforts, our communication, our fundraising, our services to ensure that every refugee that comes into Utah has the opportunity to receive the same services or have a similar pathway and access to resources. And I would say that's pretty unique in the state of Utah, where we have 24-month case management, where clients who arrive receive 2 years of case management, whereas in other scenarios, it's simply 90 days that people have to really get on their feet. So that's just one example of how we work together, and we work in close concert with the Refugee Services Office and then other critical partners as well.
So when you talk about getting on your feet and being self-sufficient, employment obviously near the top of that list has to be. Talk about what goes into making sure that refugees who come here are able to find that.
Yeah. So there's a breadth of services that are offered to refugees to access employment services. We have a great employment network, again, in close concert with the Department of Workforce Services and then between our agencies of different employers who really want to work with us and employ refugees. Even prior to the Afghan crisis that we're experiencing, people want to work with refugees. They want to work with the refugee resettlement agencies who place people in different sectors and industries. So we have a pretty high rate of placing people in jobs that can promote upward mobility and help them get their feet on the ground.
Aidan, you hit on this earlier, the fact that Utah is a welcoming state and how you felt welcome when you came here as a refugee. We all saw the governor, Spencer Cox, writing to President Biden expressing desire to bring Afghan refugees here to our state. When you saw that, what did that mean to you?
It really shows that Utah is a welcoming place, and it has been always, ever since we started the refugee resettlement in our state more than 40 years ago. Utah had welcomed more than 60,000 refugees that are calling Utah their home, and you know, it shows that how all our organizations work together, you know, the private sector and the government. If you want to know about public-private partnership, Utah is an example, and also when it comes to the welcoming, also Utah has, you know, we kind of like, you know, what an example for the rest of the country, and you know, we haven't had any, you know, issues when refugees arrive here being discriminated or, you know, and also, you know, not being welcome in our community. There's a lot of volunteers, the churches, and you know, the resettlement agencies are working together, and but we still need people to get involved. We still need people to donate and get involved in our agencies so we can provide the refugees the support that they need.
Let's dig into that a little deeper, because there is a way people watching at home can help. A fund was set up. It's a public-private partnership recently so that the community can get involved in this effort. Natalie, talk to us about how that works.
Sure. This is, again, another example of how community can mobilize, and we work strategically with our partners to align our services and the needs, especially around the Afghan response. And so the Utah Afghan Fund has designated certain funds to be allocated to the agencies who are providing response right now in specific areas that are not funded by other resources. That's a really important component of where these funds will be allocated for direct assistance, for programming that is not funded by other resources, and really allow us to coordinate our services and identify those gaps and work through those together.
And how can people contribute to that?
Well, there's a variety of ways that people can contribute. I think through the Community Foundation of Utah is kind of heading up the donations for us. And so if you go to the Community Foundation of Utah webpage, there is a link to the Utah Afghan Fund, and that would be the primary place that people can contribute. Okay,
sounds good. There's been an updated number on how many refugees are going to come here from Afghanistan. Can you just give us that updated number real quick? We've unfortunately run out of time.
Yeah, sure. We're anticipating 865 individuals from Afghanistan that will be resettled between the two agencies, IRC and Catholic Community Services. And right now, we're about halfway there. Between the two agencies, we've resettled close to 400.
Okay, thanks for the update, and thanks for being here with this important information. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still to come, November is Native American Heritage Month, how local organizations are raising awareness and how you can help. But first, federal contractors could be starting the new year with a raise. How much the minimum wage is going up for hundreds of thousands of workers after the break. Welcome back. Rural healthcare providers across the country will start receiving billions of dollars in federal funds to help them with a variety of pandemic-related expenses. Washington correspondent Jesse Tenor reports.
This is a lifeline to a lot of our providers.
More than 40,000 hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare providers in rural areas will soon get a surge in cash to help them survive beyond the pandemic.
We know that they went through a lot, and we know that they had a lot of expenses. This money should help.
On Tuesday, Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra's department started distributing $7.5 billion in American Rescue Plan funds Congress approved earlier this year.
We can't afford to lose any provider.
An average of $170,000 will go to each rural provider to hire or retain personnel, buy personal protective equipment and ventilators, or continue their vaccination efforts.
They have the ability to use this money as they see fit, given that they stepped up to help us on COVID.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers, including Senators Jean Shaheen and Susan Collins, are pushing HHS to speed up the distribution of these remaining COVID relief funds. Becerra says HHS wants to work quickly, but has to make sure providers qualify.
We don't want to find out that we sent money to a fraudulent entity and can't collect it back.
The Biden administration stresses this all plays into its efforts to get COVID under control heading into the holidays.
All hands on deck, team effort. There's no way you deal with this pandemic unless everybody does their part.
Hundreds of thousands of federal contractors will get a raise to ring in the new year. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh announcing his department is ready to implement a $15 an hour minimum wage. This will start January 30th. Right now, it's $10.95 per hour. This comes after President Biden signing an executive order back in April to increase the starting wage for these workers.
We all deserve it.
This is a good deal.
I just want to say thank you for it.
Federal contractors are cheering for the upcoming raises they say will change their families' lives.
And to be able to tell my child, hey, we can go places now. For me to be able to save some kind of money to be able to do that.
Labor Secretary Marty Walsh announced in Birmingham, Alabama, that starting January 30th, his department is ready to implement a $15 an hour minimum wage for employees under federal contracts.
So a family can afford a home, put food on the table, a car in the driveway, live with dignity, live with respect, and make sure we treat them the way that people should be treated.
Walsh estimates the rule will give a raise to nearly 330,000 workers, including those who maintain federal buildings, provide health care for veterans, and build and repair roads and bridges.
Federal contract workers are essential workers in our country.
The rule will have no direct impact on workers whose jobs are not tied to federal contracts, but supporters hope it encourages higher wages at private businesses.
The federal government is leading by example by giving federal contractors a minimum $15 wage.
Alabama Congresswoman Terry Sewell supports raising the federal minimum wage to $15 for everyone and voted with her House colleagues to do that. But Senate Democrats have not united around the issue, and it faces universal opposition from Republicans. And the rule also eliminates the tipped minimum wage for federal workers by 2024. In Washington, I'm Jesse Tenor.
Still to come, Native American Heritage Month, the reason behind it, and what's being done to further the cause.
You're watching Inside Utah Politics.
We turn now to a conversation on Native American issues. This as Native American Heritage Month comes to an end. Chamaki Jansen is the Executive Director for American Indian Services, and Meredith Lamb is a Project and Program Manager for the same organization, AIS. So glad to have you on the show. Thanks for being here. Let's start off first by talking about who your organization is. Give us some background. What is it that you do? Chama, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. American Indian Services is the longest running scholarship based nonprofit specifically addressing Native Americans' funding needs for college. And we have given over $35 million worth of scholarships, and we have done it to students representing over 300 federally recognized tribes.
Mm-hmm. So obviously the focus there is on education. Meredith, well, both of you for that matter have been recipients of the scholarship, but Meredith, your father, as I understand, was one of the first students to receive that scholarship. So talk about the tradition within your family and what that means to you.
Well, the mission of American Indian Services is just that, which is to help Native Americans hold on to their cultural heritage, meanwhile supporting them through an educational career or path. My father was a recipient and later became a medical doctor and was able to go back to his community, and that is how I grew up and developed a love of helping my own people in my own Native American community.
Chama, take a second, if you will, and talk about the importance of focusing on education and providing those types of opportunities.
So it's important that we focus on education is because Native Americans historically, the education system has not been a positive experience for them. And so giving them the opportunity to assist them through college and university level learning is very important, because not all Native Americans are given funding. So the funding that is available is very limited. And so offering this opportunity is really important.
Meredith, you mentioned the success your father had. You were also a recipient of a scholarship. Talk about the impact education has had on your family.
Well, Glenn, thank you for that question. It has made a large impact, and a positive cycle has been instilled in our family because of American Indian Services. I, being a recipient of American Indian Services, found my way through education, and so I work for Provo City School District as their American Indian Educational Director, and have found my way to American Indian Services, where I can further serve my Native American students in a larger aspect country nationwide.
As I mentioned, this is Native American Heritage Month. That may not be well known to our viewers, so let's get a little bit more into that. First off, what does that mean to you? Chama, let's start with you.
So for me, Native American Heritage Month means it's an opportunity to educate those people around me about Native American issues, because for me and my family, Native American Heritage Month is all year, and we are aware of our issues and we're aware of things that are needed. And so this month is just an opportunity for us to educate those people around us about our issues, our history, and anything else that we feel is important. We do a lot of presentations at our children's schools with their classrooms, and just educating those around you is really important.
Meredith, let's bring you in on that. What do you want people to know about the importance of this Native American Heritage Month?
I definitely would say that the importance of Native American Heritage Month really is celebrating the Native American culture, the Native American people who have been here for years. And I think that is one of the best ways that we can celebrate is, just like Chama said, listening, amplifying Native American voices. There's so many wonderful ways to highlight the Native American community. And if I can think of one word that describes Native American people, I would say resilient, because we are a strong people. And the message with Native American Heritage Month is that we are still here. We're still here, and we've been strong, and our communities are strong, and we are here to help one another and those outside of our community as well.
Let's dig into issues, the most pressing issues facing Native American communities, and let's really get specific here in the state of Utah. Meredith, talk about that.
There are, there's issues everywhere, and I think that we focus a lot on the issues that are going on, especially with marginalized communities. Of course, we are in education. Our organization deals with education, and so we do see the negative aspects of how resources are not available to our Native American students because of the areas of where they live, some being very rural communities. There is a lack of resources, and so us being an organization here in a metropolitan city like Salt Lake City, we have access to some of the greatest resources across the country, and it's been wonderful to be able to help and reach out to our communities and our Native and sister organizations that have really just joined forces to helping Native students succeed in education.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can tend to take that for granted. So if you could, take just a minute and talk about the challenges that are presented for children, say, on Navajo Nation that don't always even have access to education.
That's correct. So like right down south in, southern eastern Utah, you have Blanding. You have an area there at the segment, it's a portion of the Navajo Nation, and there they are experiencing lack of resources as broadband. There's not enough internet service or capability, so a lot of these hotspots that are there for students to study and to connect to school for online resources, that is a lack for that community. And there have been a number of people who've gotten together to try to figure out how they can solve the broadband issue.
Chama, let's talk more about the pandemic and its impact on Navajo Nation. We have reported on it extensively. There have been times where when we're talking per capita, they've had the highest COVID-19 rate in the entire country. How has that impacted those who live on the reservation?
So those that live in a remote area, such as a reservation, they usually lack the infrastructure and high-speed internet that is needed for students to attend remote schooling. And that's where we have seen the most difference as far as education goes. And as far as colleges and universities, the same thing. If a student goes home to the reservation and they're asked to complete online school or online classes with the university, that lack of access to high-speed internet is a kind of stumbling block for them.
Yeah, think about that for a second. How many times have our kids been sent home to learn at home and then not having the internet? Just let that sink in, because that is a reality for some of those in Navajo Nation. Let's move on to what can be done to help. Chama, you're always looking for businesses to partner with. How does that work?
So we're always looking for businesses to partner with to help us provide those kind of supplies and needs for education for our students. Recently we partnered with Boeing, and we also partnered with Bank of America to help us gather the supplies needed. And ultimately it's going to help our students, and it's going to help their communities as well.
Mm-hmm. And Meredith, you were also selected as Light of the World as a partner. Many of us are familiar with that. That's a way we can contribute as well.
That is a wonderful way that people can contribute, because we're set up right there in City Creek, downtown Salt Lake City. And there are specific ways that people can donate and help Native American students. There's an option for scholarships, there's an option for camping supplies for our STEM camp for our middle school age students, as well as Indigenous Children's Book. I mean, so there's a range of ways that people can help. And I just think people should go down and take a look, but you can also access Light the World and our donations on our website, AmericanIndianServices.org.
Okay, and y'all are on social media and can be found there as well, correct?
That is correct. So Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Okay.
TikTok is a newer one.
Yeah, I haven't picked that one up just yet myself, but maybe it's coming.
We can be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, very important conversation. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Glenn. Thanks.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break. We leave you now with a look at what's on the radar in the world of politics. Speaker Brad Wilson hosting a summit on the Great Salt Lake. It's Wednesday, January 5th. It will be hosted at the Davis Conference Center in Layton. The public will be able to participate virtually. The legislative session starts a few weeks after that, Tuesday, January 18th. Make sure to connect with me on social media. I'd like to know what you think of this show and other issues important to you. You can email me at InsideUtahPolitics@abc4.com. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Just log on and search Glenn Mills ABC4. Thanks so much for making us part of your Sunday morning. We hope to see you again next week as we go inside Utah politics.